All right, everybody, get ready because today we are diving deep into a real-life cyber mystery, like something straight out of a movie. We're talking about the hack of the 2018 Winter Olympics. Yeah, you heard that right. We've got excerpts here from this Wired article, and let me tell you, this thing's wild. It's called The Untold Story of the 2018 Olympics Cyber Attack.
Oh, this is a good one.
So get this, picture it. The opening ceremony in Pyeongchang.
The excitement, the energy.
Exactly. The stadium's buzzing, the world is watching, athletes are primed to compete, and then, bam, a total IT meltdown. Thousands of devices just go dark.
Just like that.
Internet, TVs, security gates, they even hit the official Olympics app.
Can you imagine the chaos?
Talk about a nightmare scenario, right? I mean, Sang Jin, the Olympics tech director, this guy's suddenly facing down every organizer's worst fear.
It really underscores how vulnerable even these huge global events can be.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just an inconvenience. This was a major crisis.
It could have shut the whole thing down. I mean, potentially.
Exactly. So that leads us to the big question, right? Who would want to do this? And why target the Olympics?
Well, investigators naturally started with the usual suspects.
Makes sense. So who is on the list?
Well, the article lays it out pretty clearly. North Korea was right there at the top.
Yeah.
They definitely had a reason, plus a history of cyber attacks, especially against South Korea.
Right. They've been known to make a statement.
But, and this is interesting, they were also trying to play nice during the games, putting on that whole diplomatic charm offensive.
Yeah, I remember that was a big deal at the time. So what are the chances they'd risk blowing that by doing something so brazen?
Exactly, so it raised some eyebrows.
Okay, so if not North Korea, who else had it out for the Olympics?
Well, then you've got Russia. Don't forget, they were banned from the 2018 games because of that massive doping scandal.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were not happy about that whole situation.
Not at all. And they've got prior history when it comes to cyber retaliation, so.
Definitely a motive there.
Plus, there were whispers even before the games that a Russian hacking group was going after the Olympics.
Talk about adding fuel to the fire. Okay, so we've got potential suspects, we've got motive, but this is where things get really wild. Cybersecurity experts finally get their hands on the malware responsible, which they called Olympic Destroyer. And this thing was basically a digital ghost, designed to disappear without a trace.
Incredibly sophisticated. It used these things called false flags, basically, like digital breadcrumbs, meant to confuse anyone trying to figure out who was behind it.
And it worked. Some parts of the malware looked a lot like other Russian malware, stuff like NotPetya and Bad Rabbit, and those have been used in some pretty major attacks, so naturally suspicion fell on Russia.
Right, those are their fingerprints.
Exactly. But, right, the Olympic Destroyer Code also had elements that pointed to other actors. It was really confusing.
It was, like they were trying to muddy the waters on purpose.
So who else were they trying to blame it on?
Well, they used some data wiping methods that were really similar to the North Korean Lazarus group.
Oh, wow, those guys, they're notorious. Weren't they the ones who took down Sony Pictures a few years back?
That's the one. They're all about aggressive cyber attacks.
Right, so now it could be Russia, it could be North Korea, and get this. They even found code snippets that matched tools used by some Chinese hacking groups. Talk about a tangled web.
It was a mess, and that was the whole point. It made it almost impossible to pin the attack on any one group, for sure.
It's like a digital game of Clue, and everyone's a suspect. And just when they thought it couldn't get any weirder, a Kaspersky researcher found something else buried in the code. A forged header.
And not just any header. This one was designed to make it look like North Korea was behind the whole thing.
Wait, so they were framing North Korea. It's like something out of a spy novel. So we've got Russia, North Korea, maybe even China in the mix. Who could it be? All right, we're back on the case. Still trying to crack the Olympic Destroyer Code. Last time it seemed like every clue was a dead end, just leading investigators in circles.
It was a real head-scratcher.
But remember that fake Word doc we talked about? The one used to spread the malware? Turns out that had a pretty important clue.
Yeah, that document was key. While everyone else was caught up in the malware itself, one researcher, Michael Matonis, he took a different approach.
Interesting. What did he do?
He decided to focus on that Word document, like really dig into it.
Smart thinking. Sometimes the smallest details can break a case wide open. What did he find?
So he starts looking at the document's history, right? Trying to see if there are any digital fingerprints that connected to other attacks.
Right, like a digital trail.
Exactly. And he finds one. A whole pattern of similar booby-trap documents.
Really? What kind of attacks?
Oh, all sorts. We're talking about the Olympic Committee, sure,
Yeah.
but also Ukrainian activists, LGBT groups, government agencies, businesses, even some wealthy Russians.
Wow, that's random. So how did he tie these random attacks to the Olympic destroyer?
It was a small detail, but crucial. He found out that all these malicious documents were created using the same program, this open source thing called malicious macro generator.
So even though they tried to make each attack look different.
They were using the same tool, a real rookie mistake.
Wow. So what did that tell Matonis?
It meant he could link all these attacks together. Finally, he could see how the attackers work, their motives.
And what did all those connections point to?
You guessed it, Russia.
Russia again. But this time it was more than a hunch, right?
Right. Matonis and pretty much the entire cybersecurity world had been watching what Russia was doing online, especially to Ukraine, since 2014.
Right. With everything going on there.
The way they attacked, who they targeted,
Yeah.
it all pointed to one group,
Yeah.
a unit within the GRU.
The GRU, that's Russia's military intelligence agency, right? Didn't they come up in the investigation into election interference back in 2016?
The very same. But Matonis needed solid evidence to link them to Olympic Destroyer for sure. He needed a smoking gun.
And did he find it?
He did. A domain name. account-loginserve.com.
A domain name. What's so important about that?
All right, back for the final part of our Olympic Destroyer deep dive, and we're about to solve this thing. Last we left off, that digital detective, Matonis, he found a domain name, account-loginserve.com. What is the big deal with this domain?
This wasn't just any domain name. Matonis, he'd seen this before.
Really? Where?
He was in an FBI alert, actually, about a hacking group that was targeting, get this, voter registration system.
Wait, what? Like trying to mess with elections?
Yep, back in 2016, Arizona and Illinois, those are the targets. This just got real. Okay, so what did the FBI alert say?
So it described how this group, they were using fake emails,
Right?
disguise, to look like they were from a legit voting tech company.
Sneaky.
The whole point was to trick election officials into giving up their login info. Classic phishing scam, but with huge stakes.
Yeah, no kidding. And how does this connect to the Olympics?
Those phishing emails, they use that same domain, account-loginserve.com, the one Matonis found.
Whoa. So it's the same hackers.
It was the link.
Yeah.
Directly connected the GRU to both attacks, the Olympics, and those election systems.
It's like they used the same getaway car for two different robberies.
Exactly. And get this, while Matonis was doing his thing, U.S. intelligence agencies, they were on the case too.
Right, because they got their own methods.
Oh, yeah. And in February 2018, two officials actually confirmed it to the Washington Post, said it was Russia, even named the unit, Unit 74455.
And that unit, they're the same ones who hit Ukraine's power grid a few years earlier.
Yep. 2015 and 2016, they caused those blackouts. And then there was that NotPetya attack. Remember that one?
How could I forget? That was chaos. So this was definitely not some random group of hackers.
No way. This was state-sponsored.
Cyber warfare, basically.
And the U.S. government, they wanted to be sure. So they waited for the GRU to slip up again.
And did they?
Oh, yeah. July 2018, Robert Mueller, he was the special counsel investigating the election interference, he dropped this huge indictment, 29 pages, against 12 GRU officers.
12. Okay, so what did they have on them?
Well, one of them was from, you guessed it, Unit 74455. The indictment laid it all out there. Their involvement in hacking the DNC, stealing emails, trying to mess with the election.
So the Olympics were just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
It showed just how far some countries are willing to go to get what they want, and how vulnerable we all are in this digital age.
It's a scary thought. What can we do to protect ourselves, though? It feels like an impossible task sometimes.
It's a challenge for sure, but we got to be proactive. We got to understand how these attacks work, who's behind them, so we can build better defenses.
So what can the average person do?
Be careful what you click online. Watch out for those phishing scams. You got to have strong passwords, all that good stuff.
Basic cyber hygiene, but so important.
Exactly. And we also need to demand more transparency from our leaders and from these tech companies. They have a responsibility to keep us safe online.
It's a team effort, for sure. Well, there you have it, folks. The Olympic destroyer attack, a story of cyber espionage, lies, and how some countries will stop at nothing to get ahead. Thanks for joining us for this wild ride. Remember, the digital world can be a dangerous place, so stay informed, stay curious, and stay safe out there. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.